Have you ever settled into a plastic chair and thought, whoa, how do they even make this thing?
I know, right?
Well, get ready to find out because today's deep dive is all about the people behind those surprisingly ubiquitous pieces of furniture. Plastic furniture machine operators.
We're going dap on this one. You sent over some really interesting career guides from RoleCatcher, even interview tips.
Oh, yeah.
I have a feeling we're about to uncover a job that's way more interesting than it gets credit for.
Right. You hear that job title and you might picture a factory line straight out of the 50s, but there's got to be more to it, right?
Way more. One of the first things that jumped out at me from the RoleCatcher material was this balance between technical skills and quality control. These operators aren't just pushing buttons. They're the ones making sure each piece of furniture actually meets the standard.
So it's part machine whisperer, part quality control guru. What kind of tasks are we talking about specifically?
Well, the guides mention inspecting each product,
Mm.
making sure there are no defects,
Yeah.
and even assembling parts in some cases.
Are.
They're responsible for catching any flaws before that chair or table ends up on someone's patio.
And speaking of patios, I'm picturing those plastic chairs surviving all kinds of weather backyard BBQs. These things are practically indestructible.
It's true, and that durability is a big part of why this job sector is so interesting.
Okay.
The RoleCatcher guides actually listed high demand and steady employment as major advantages for this career path.
That's good news for anyone looking to get into the plastic furniture game. But let's be real, it can't be all sunshine and patio furniture. What about the downsides, the stuff they don't put on the recruiting posters?
The guides didn't shy away from that, which I appreciated.
Okay, good.
It sounds like the work can be pretty physically demanding, standing for long hours,
Oh, yeah.
potential for repetitive motion, and depending on the factory, exposure to noise, dust, maybe even chemicals.
That makes sense. You're working with machinery, plastic molding. Not exactly a stroll through a park.
And while there's definitely a certain satisfaction in seeing a tangible product roll off the line, the guides did mention that the tasks themselves can get repetitive.
Yeah.
So someone who craves constant variety in their workday might find that aspect a bit challenging.
Okay, so we've got this interesting tension, high demand, steady work, but potentially physically tough and repetitive. Where I'm really curious is the growth potential. Is this a dead-end job, or can you actually move up in the plastic furniture world?
This is where things get really interesting. The RoleCatcher guys actually lay out a pretty clear career trajectory for plastic furniture machine operators.
Really?
They start at entry level and can work their way all the way up to senior positions.
So you start by learning the ropes, mastering the machines. What comes next?
After you prove yourself, you might become a junior operator.
Okay.
The guides mention responsibilities like running quality checks, troubleshooting minor machine problems, and even training new hires.
So you become the go-to person passing on that plastic furniture wisdom. What about those top-level senior positions? What makes them different?
Think of it like this. A senior operator is basically running the show. They're the ones developing production processes, mentoring junior operators, maybe even working with engineers to optimize the machines and workflows. It's a whole other level of responsibility and expertise.
I'm already getting the sense that this isn't just a job. It's a career path with some serious potential. But let's get back to those entry-level folks for a second. I'm curious, what does an average day actually look like for them? We've got this image of a bustling factory floor, but paint us a picture.
All right, imagine this. You clock in, and you're met with this wave of sound, the rhythmic hum of machinery, maybe the faint scent of plastic in the air.
I can almost smell it now.
First things first, safety gear, earplugs, goggles, the works. Then it's all about setting up your workstation.
So it's not just hitting a button and watching plastic chairs come out. There's actual prep work involved.
Absolutely. The RoleCatcher materials emphasize the importance of setting up and adjusting the machines, getting the production line going, and generally making sure everything's running smoothly. It's more hands-on than you might think.
I'm guessing there's a good amount of monitoring involved, too.
Oh, tons. You're basically the eyes and ears of that machine, watching for any issues, making sure the products coming out look right.
Right.
Remember, you're the one who spots those defects, those little imperfections, and pulls them off the line before they go any further.
Sounds like this job requires a keen eye for detail, the ability to spot a wobbly chair leg from a mile away.
It's all about catching those subtle variations. And in some facilities, the operators even handle the assembly, putting together chairs, tables, all that fun stuff.
So there's a real hands-on tactile element to it, especially during that assembly process. But I want to zoom out for a second. Where do plastic furniture machine operators fit into the grand scheme of things? What's the bigger picture here?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
I think sometimes it's easy to forget that plastic furniture is literally everywhere.
it's true.
Schools, offices, parks, backyards. We're surrounded by it.
You're totally right. I never really stopped to think about it, but it's true.
And every single one of those plastic chairs, those tables, those patio sets, they all started with a team of skilled operators who brought them to life.
Wow.
They're the ones who keep the gears turning in this massive industry that most people probably never even think about.
It's incredible how something as seemingly simple as a plastic chair can involve such a complex process and so many skilled workers.
It really makes you appreciate the hidden world behind those everyday objects. And speaking of hidden complexities, there was one thing in the RoleCatcher material that really surprised me. It was this statistic about the skills needed for the job. You'd think it's all technical, right?
That's what I would assume too. What did the guide say?
Get this, according to their research, something like 60% of a plastic furniture machine operator's skill set falls under administration and management.
Wait, seriously.
Yeah.
That's wild. It seems so counterintuitive. Break it down for me. How do those skills play into a job that seems so hands-on?
It's all about that bigger picture we were just talking about. Remember, these operators aren't just mindlessly pressing buttons.
Right.
They're responsible for making decisions about production flow, troubleshooting problems, even training other employees.
Yeah.
That requires a different set of skills altogether.
So it's less about knowing how to operate a specific machine and more about understanding how all the pieces fit together, how to keep everything running like a well-oiled plastic-producing machine.
Exactly.
It really flicks the script on what we think this job entails. You're not just working with your hands, you're working with your head too.
And that's something that really stood out to me in the RoleCatcher guys. They dedicated a good chunk of their analysis to this idea of career progression.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning how to run one machine. It's about developing the skills to potentially manage an entire team, maybe even oversee a whole production line.
Okay, now that sounds like a career.
Hold on a second.
What about those robots everyone's always talking about? Are they coming for the plastic furniture machine operator jobs too?
Ugh. Yes, the robots. The RoleCatcher guides definitely didn't shy away from the impact of automation,
Good.
which is smart because it's something anyone considering this career needs to be thinking about.
So what's the verdict? Should aspiring plastic furniture machine operators be brushing up on their robot fighting skills?
Not quite.
Okay, good.
Here's the thing. While it's true that automation is changing the manufacturing landscape, it doesn't necessarily spell doom and gloom for human workers. It's more about adaptation and evolution.
So less Terminator, more co-workers of the future. What does that look like in the real world?
Picture this. Instead of spending their days on repetitive tasks, those tasks get taken over by automated systems, by robots,
Okay.
and the operators. They level up. They become the ones who program and maintain those robots who oversee the entire automated process, who use their problem-solving skills to make sure everything runs smoothly.
So instead of being replaced, they become the robot managers. I like the sound of that.
It's the difference between knowing how to operate a machine and understanding the entire system, the technology behind it. And that's where those administration and management skills become even more crucial.
Because even the smartest robot needs a human to tell it what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about staying ahead of the curve, constantly learning and adapting to the evolving technology.
Right.
And the RoleCatcher guys actually had some great advice on that front. They suggested things like taking workshops offered by machinery manufacturers, staying updated on industry publications, and even connecting with other professionals in the field.
Basically, never stop learning. Because the factory floor of tomorrow might look a lot different than the factory floor of today.
Yeah, exactly. It's exciting and a little bit daunting, right?
Yeah.
But those who embrace that change, who are eager to learn and adapt, those are the ones who will thrive.
It's like that classic saying, adapt or die. Except in this case, it's more like adapt and thrive.
Now you're getting it. And you know what really drove that point home for me? Those example profiles that were included in the RoleCatcher material.
Oh, yeah.
It was fascinating to get those different snapshots of people working in this field.
Right. It wasn't just some generic job description. We got to hear from actual operators at different stages of their careers talking about the challenges, the rewards, the skills they've developed.
It made it so much more real. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like that entry-level operator who was laser-focused on safety protocols and keeping their workspace spotless. You could tell they took real pride in their work, even at that early stage.
And then there was that junior operator who was all about troubleshooting those tricky machine issues, collaborating with their team to crush those production targets. They were a real go-getter.
Yeah, and who could forget our superstar senior operator? They were basically running the show, developing new processes, mentoring junior operators, and even working with engineers to boost machine performance.
Yeah.
Talk about leadership.
It's honestly inspiring to see that kind of career progression laid out. It really shows that with hard work, dedication, and a willingness to keep learning, you can build a really rewarding career in this field. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. We've talked a lot about the who of this job, but what about the how? How do they actually make plastic furniture?
It's a surprisingly fascinating process. Now, the RoleCatcher guides didn't get too technical, but they did give a good overview. It all starts with those tiny plastic pellets. They almost look like beads.
Okay, I can picture those. So how do they go from tiny beads to like a solid chair?
That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
First, they heat up those pellets until they melt into a liquid form, kind of like a thick, gooey syrup.
Okay.
Then they inject that molten plastic into molds. These molds are basically hollow cavities that are shaped like the furniture pieces, chair legs, seat backs, you name it.
Ah, so that's how they get those perfect shapes.
Exactly. The plastic cools and hardens inside the mold, taking on its final form. Then they open up the mold, and out pops a freshly made piece of plastic furniture.
And then our trusty plastic furniture machine operator swoops in to give it the once-over, make sure it's up to snuff, and send it on its merry way to a patio near us.
Exactly. They're overseeing this amazing transformation from tiny plastic pellets to the furniture we often take for granted.
It really is remarkable when you think about it. So we've covered a lot of ground here, the skills, career path, even a glimpse into the future of this industry. But there's one last thing I'm curious about. What does the RoleCatcher guide have to say about the actual work environment? What's it like to spend your day on a plastic furniture production floor?
Well, the guides mentioned that the environment can vary quite a bit, depending on the specific factory and the types of furniture they're producing.
That's right. You might be in a massive facility with rows upon rows of machines, or a smaller operation with a more close-knit team.
And I'm guessing safety is a top priority no matter what. Absolutely. The RoleCatcher materials really emphasize the importance of following safety protocols, wearing the proper gear, and being constantly aware of your surroundings.
Which makes sense when you're working with heavy machinery and molten plastic.
Exactly. And then there's the whole teamwork aspect.
Oh, yeah.
The guides highlighted how important it is for operators to communicate effectively with each other, to troubleshoot problems together, and to keep that production line moving smoothly.
So you're not just staring at a machine all day. You're part of a team, all working towards a common goal.
And that can be really rewarding, especially when you see a finished product rolling off the line, knowing that you played a part in creating it.
It sounds like a career path with a lot of different facets. There's the technical side, the problem solving, the teamwork, and even the satisfaction of knowing that you're making something tangible that people use every day.
And let's not forget the potential impact of automation.
Right.
As we discussed earlier, the role of a plastic furniture machine operator is likely to evolve alongside technology.
Which brings us to the question on everyone's minds. What skills will be most crucial for these operators to thrive in the years to come?
It all boils down to adaptability and a willingness to embrace new technologies. Those who can learn quickly, who can work alongside robots, and who can troubleshoot issues in an increasingly automated environment. Those will be the ones in high demand.
So forget the robot overlords. It's more about humans and robots working together as a team.
Precisely. And that requires a unique combination of technical expertise, problem-solving skills, and a forward-thinking mindset.
So to all those aspiring plastic furniture machine operators out there, if you're looking for a career that's both challenging and rewarding, this might just be the perfect fit.
And the next time you pull up a plastic chair, take a moment to appreciate the ingenuity and the craftsmanship that went into creating it.
Well said. This has been an eye-opening deep dive into a field that's often overlooked, but plays a surprisingly significant role in our everyday lives.
Until next time, happy listening, everyone.